The year is 1962, a year that will be etched in history forever. The world watches, holding its breath. The Cuban Missile Crisis, a standoff between superpowers, nuclear brinkmanship. The tension is palpable, the stakes unimaginably high. Images of mushroom clouds haunt the collective consciousness. The fear of nuclear annihilation is not just a distant nightmare, it is a looming reality. The threat of annihilation hangs heavy in the air. Air raid drills become routine, and bomb shelters are stocked with supplies. People live in constant fear, their lives overshadowed by the spectre of nuclear war. But the crisis is averted. Diplomacy prevails and the world breathes a collective sigh of relief. The sigh of relief sweeps the globe, or so we thought. The tension may have eased, but the underlying issues remain unresolved. This is not our timeline, this is a world where the crisis did not end peacefully. This is where history takes a different turn, a turn towards a darker, more uncertain future. In this alternate reality, the Cold War is a simmering pot ready to boil over. Military drills become more frequent and the world teeters on the edge of conflict. Suspicion and paranoia run deep on both sides of the Iron Curtain. Spies lurk in the shadows and propaganda fuels the fire of distrust. The United States, champion of the free world, faces off against the Soviet Union, a communist behemoth. The stakes are high: global domination, ideological supremacy. Each side is determined to prove its way of life is superior. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance. Ordinary people live in fear, their lives dictated by the whims of superpowers. Every word is a weapon, every action a provocation. Diplomacy is a tightrope walk where one misstep could lead to disaster. Proxy wars rage across the globe: Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan. Each conflict a battleground for ideological supremacy. Each war a step closer to global catastrophe. Each conflict a dangerous game of chess played with the lives of millions. Leaders strategize, but the cost is human lives. The world watches, waits and prays for peace, but hope is fragile and fear is ever present. But deep down, a chilling certainty grows. This cannot last. The tension is unsustainable, and the world knows it. Sooner or later, the powder keg will ignite. The question is not if, but when. And when it does, the consequences will be unimaginable. Berlin, 1968. A city divided not just by a wall, but by ideology, politics, and the looming threat of conflict. The divided city, a microcosm of a fractured world. East and West Berlin, two sides of a coin, each representing a different vision for the future. Tensions are high as a cat attempts to cross the Berlin Wall, a simple act, yet it symbolizes the desperation and hope of those trapped in this divided city. East German border guards open fire. The air is filled with the crack of gunshots, a stark reminder of the ever-present danger. A stray bullet hits an American patrol. The soldiers, caught off guard, scramble for cover, their training kicking in as they assess the situation. A tragic accident? Or a deliberate act of aggression? The line between the two blurs in the chaos. Whatever the truth, the consequences are immediate and irreversible. The fragile peace shatters. The world watches in horror as the situation escalates. Accusations fly like missiles across the Iron Curtain. Each side blames the other, the rhetoric growing more heated by the minute. The United States demands justice. The government, under pressure from its citizens, calls for accountability and swift action.
The United States demands justice. The cries for retribution grow louder, echoing through the halls of power.
The Soviet Union denies involvement. They claim it was a misunderstanding, a tragic mistake blown out of proportion.
The Soviet Union denies involvement. Their leaders stand firm, refusing to accept blame.
Rhetoric escalates. Politicians on both sides deliver fiery speeches, each more inflammatory than the last. Lines are drawn in the sand. The world braces for what seems like an inevitable clash. The world holds its breath once more. People everywhere tune in, hoping for a resolution but fearing the worst. But this time, there is no backing down. The stakes are too high, the wounds too deep. Within hours, the machinery of war grinds into motion. Tanks roll out, soldiers prepare for what lies ahead. NATO forces scramble to defend West Berlin. The alliance moves quickly, determined to protect its interests. Warsaw Pact troops mass along the border. The unthinkable becomes reality. The world teeters on the brink of all-out war. The Cold War turns hot. The conflict that everyone feared but hoped would never come to pass is now a devastating reality. The initial clashes are brutal, with soldiers facing relentless gunfire and artillery shells. The ground shakes with the force of explosions and the air is thick with smoke and dust. Tank battles rage across the plains of Germany, with armored divisions clashing in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The roar of engines and the thunder of cannons fill the air as tanks maneuver for advantage. Dogfights erupt in the skies above as fighter jets engage in high-speed chases and deadly duels. Pilots push their machines to the limit, weaving through clouds and dodging enemy fire. Both sides unleash a terrifying arsenal of conventional weaponry. Artillery barrages, missile strikes and infantry assaults create a symphony of destruction, leaving devastation in their wake. Cities crumble under a hail of bombs, their once proud structures reduced to rubble. The relentless bombardment spares no one, turning urban landscapes into ghostly ruins. Millions flee their homes, seeking refuge from the onslaught. Families are torn apart and the roads are filled with desperate people carrying whatever they can salvage. But this is no localized conflict. The flames of war spread across continents, drawing nations into a web of alliances and enmities. The dominoes begin to fall, one by one, as countries are pulled into the escalating conflict. The world teeters on the brink of a full-scale global war. Korea erupts as North Korean forces, backed by China, surge across the 38th parallel. The peninsula becomes a flashpoint, with battles raging from the mountains to the seas. NATO and Soviet warships clash in the Mediterranean, turning the sea into a battleground. The naval engagements are fierce, with ships exchanging volleys of missiles and torpedoes. The world watches in horror as the conflict spirals out of control. News broadcasts bring the grim reality of war into living rooms, and people everywhere react with fear and disbelief.
Fear and paranoia grip the globe. People take shelter in bunkers, and the tension of the Cold War reaches a fever pitch. The threat of nuclear war hangs over every conversation. Governments teeter on the brink of collapse. Political leaders engage in heated debates, trying to navigate the crisis while riots and civil unrest spread through the streets. Civil defense sirens wail, a constant reminder of the threat from above. People run for cover, their hearts pounding with the fear of imminent attack.
The specter of nuclear annihilation looms larger than ever. The possibility of a nuclear strike becomes a terrifying reality, casting a shadow over the entire world. Every moment could be our last. The ticking clock serves as a grim reminder that time is running out and the world holds its breath, waiting for the next move.